Hello, I'm your host, Giselle Gamby, and this is the Intuitive Pull Podcast, where together we'll embrace the plans we did not make yet, unfold businesses and lives that are so much greater in wealth in all ways than any business or life plan could ever achieve. My wish is that you make intuition your most trusted advisor. So buckle up, get present, and let's go. Hello. It is the afternoon before I head off to Croatia to facilitate a retreat there with my darling friend and peer, Shari L. I'm so excited to be going with a bunch of beautiful clients and some of Shari's clients as well that I'm really looking forward to meeting. And life, let me tell you, has just been so full of goodness that I have had to check myself several times about the truth of who I am, and that is that my capacity is infinite. When I've wanted to say, oh my God, there's so much on, oh my God, it's too much, I really had to check myself and remember that my capacity is infinite, and it's been an incredible experience. I have been wanting to create this episode now for 2 weeks. It has been on the cards, and this afternoon I tuned in. What am I pulled to do this afternoon with the few hours I have left before I head off tomorrow? And there were a few people that I wanted to have a conversation with, and there was a post I was called to write, and there's this episode that I'm called to record. I will probably edit it when I'm overseas, and so let it be infused with the magic of Croatia when I edit it, or Switzerland, because I'll be going to Switzerland beforehand with my darling almost 88-year-old mum who's coming on retreat with us, obviously not doing the workshop part, but coming and traveling with us as she has in the past to China and also to Kenya. So here is an episode that's been wanting to be made for a couple of weeks, and here I am. And it's interesting because what I'm going to share comes off the back of a retreat that I attended as a participant in the Visionary Leaders Mastermind that I am part of. So I'm actually demonstrating to you the power, the life-changing power of a retreat. And what I didn't know I was going to say is that we have another retreat coming up on the 1st to the 13th of November in Kenya. And this retreat is for clients. I have some beautiful clients that have been called to attend. And I'm co-facilitating this retreat with my darling friend and peer, Michelle Richmond, who I've known probably for about 25 years. You may have heard her on the podcast a few times. I've had a couple of conversations with her in the last couple of weeks. And we are opening Kenya up to people who have worked with us in the past, and even to people who we don't know, who feel like they are called to come. This is what happens with Kenya. You get called. It's what happened to me. I had no idea that I would end up co-facilitating. This will be now my 3rd retreat in Kenya back in 2014. How that came about was I was facilitating a retreat in the Hunter Valley. And then all of a sudden my intuition said, you need to have a conversation with Michelle, my peer, who is Aussie but lives in Kenya. I didn't know why I was going to have a conversation with her. And then we had that conversation, and it was like, we're going to do a retreat in Kenya. And so we did. That was the first one we did, was in 2015. And then we did another a couple of years later. And I said to people when we're in lockdown with COVID, I said, as soon as COVID lifts and we're no longer in lockdown, I'm called to come back and co-facilitate another retreat with Michelle. So if you are called to come to Kenya, the theme is deep impact, not surface level little ripples, but deep, deep impact, called into big magic. People who have already said yes because they were called, they listened to those episodes. So just letting you know what they are. One of them is deep impact, called into impact beyond the impact that you've made to date. That's one of the ones, deep impact. And the other episode is lovingly unfiltered, which is actually Michelle's takeaways from the retreat that we were just on as participants in the Visionary Leaders Mastermind facilitated by Daniel Batten. So as you listen to my takeouts from my retreat, I'm inviting you to feel into, does Kenya call me? Is what Giselle is sharing that will infuse the container that we'll experience in Kenya? Does it call me? Is it speaking to my spirit? Is it speaking to my soul? And if it is, you know us already, please send us a message, Michelle or I. And if you don't know us, please email me and we'll have a conversation. So let's dive into what I've been dying to share with you over the last few weeks. What I came to realize was that all of my experiences, particularly this year, have shown me what the ingredients are to experiencing overflow in our lives. Overflow, not just enough, not even flow. We're talking about overflow. Like when I think of overflow, I see in my mind's eye a spring of water just gushing out, everywhere, like more than enough, quantum generosity. And that has been my experience this year. Really, I've had the most extraordinary year. I want to speak to the pieces along the journey this year that have allowed me and the people that I coach to experience overflow. So at the beginning of the year, actually, let me say this. How the theme of overflow came to me and how every theme of the year comes to me, I don't actually sit there and brainstorm it away or brainstorm it up or think it up. It arrives, it intuitively arrives, and it always arrives the year before. So this arrived actually, the seed started getting planted in the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2021. And then there were several things that happened during the year. And it was like, oh, okay, now I can see what this is about. This is about overflow. And so overflow it shall be in 2022. And I have to say, now that I have received the ingredients to overflow, it will continue in 2023 because it's about integration. So when that theme arrived, the premise that momentum serves the committed, in other words, that momentum is the consequence of commitment, that premise arrived in a conversation on a group call. And I have seen the momentum that has been created in my life, and I've seen the momentum that has been created in some of my clients' lives when they have relentlessly committed to the thing that they've been called by, when they have relentlessly been committed to the thing that they've been pulled by, regardless of what their ego is saying to them and the stories that they're saying to themselves, that they have relentlessly committed to following that intuitive pull. And absolutely, momentum has been the consequence. Even the making of this podcast has been such an exercise of commitment. It takes quite an amount of time to edit these episodes. It certainly takes a lot of presence to even conceive of what is to be spoken about and who I'm going to interview. And then there's this whole social media aspect of putting it out there. It really has been an exercise of commitment. And I know the momentum that I've experienced this year has been a direct consequence of my commitment to the podcast. So that's one of the keys to experiencing overflow. The other key to experiencing overflow is I've spoken about this a few times on the podcast, and that is that up until this year, I had worked with myself and with clients on one stream of joy and income. So it would be one business that we'd be working on, one expression of their leadership through their business that we'd be working on, and we'd work with the premise that authenticity is profitable, and so it would be. But this year, through the observation of my clients and what was happening in my clients' worlds, what I noticed was that we were actually experiencing multiple streams of joy and multiple streams of income. And I've been applying that in my life as well. The podcast is totally a stream of joy. And you know what? It's been a stream of unexpected income for me, because I never knew people were going to be called into coaching with me by listening to these episodes. That was never in the plan. I had no idea. And it's been so precious. And I'm so grateful, so grateful. So place that in your awareness, that one of the other ingredients to experiencing more than you could ever imagine is the idea that we have the capacity to have multiple streams of joy and income. So that's the second ingredient to experiencing overflow. The third ingredient to experiencing overflow, and this is really, really without this one, nothing happens. And it's the title of this podcast, The Intuitive Pull. When you follow the intuitive pull, and I'm going to emphasize one word here, this is key, consistently. When you follow the intuitive pull consistently, not just when you're in need, not just every now and then when it feels good, not just when you remember to, not just when you remember to meditate, but when you decide that you're going to walk life in intuition. It's not going to be something that you do, it's who you are. When you follow the intuitive pull consistently, because you are walking life with intuition, it's just who you are and the way that you live in the world, overflow is the consequence. You know, I have lived intuitively, consciously from intuition, I think since 1999. And every significant transformation that I've had in my life has been because I followed the intuitive pull. Even if I was scared, even if I was wary, even if I didn't think that I had the ability to, even if I perceived that it was going to cause disruption in my family, for example. And I still said yes. And really, this is something that I can put my hand on heart to say that I have integrity with. Even when it potentially and in reality did cause initial disruption in my family, because they couldn't understand what my intuitive pull was, because I didn't have any guarantees as to what would happen as a result of me following that pull. All that I had was the feeling to go there. And so I understand how other people don't quite get it. When you're making a big investment in this, in following that intuitive pull, whether it be to go to a retreat, to take on a coach that really feels out of your league financially, that was certainly my case in 2013, and you still say yes, I promise you that that level of trust and faith within yourself, that level of presence that you have with yourself, the only consequence can be overflow. And it's not just for you. The thing is, it's generous. It's for everybody else, even if they don't understand it at the time. And, you know, speaking of my own personal experience with my family, my husband didn't get why I was going to financially commit, you know, in a quite a big way to a coach that I'd never met in 2013, but I was pulled to work with her. He is so damn grateful that I did, because everything changed from that moment. Everything changed from that moment. And I lifted the paradigm from which he had been living. So it's an act of generosity. It's an act of generosity. So that's the third ingredient. When you follow the intuitive pull consistently, despite fears and stories and resistance from within or from outside of you, I promise you that overflow is the only consequence that can happen. And it's very generous in nature, not just for you, but for all the people around you. I've been saying it's like going on a magic carpet ride. When you say yes to that pull, you literally go on a magic carpet ride and you go to places that you never knew were going to unfold. And they are places of absolute wonder and awe. The places that I've gone to this year, within myself to start with, and then the experiences that I've had as a result of that, I never had any preconception that that's where I would be. And I never had any preconception that I would be the person in that, because that person that I became, was so not in alignment with the person that I thought I was. What I'm trying to say is that our capacity is infinite, so much bigger than what we think we are and what we have. And it really is quite a ride to see who you become, or who you remember that you really are, when you consistently follow the intuitive pull. The fourth ingredient to experiencing more than you could ever imagine is something that I experienced, guess what, on retreat. I was pulled to go to a retreat with two wonderful coaches, Jason and Penny, and I went to the Sunshine Hinterland with them. I didn't know why I was going. Penny said it to me one day. She said, "Oh, Jason and I are going to facilitate a retreat in the Sunshine Hinterland." They didn't actually invite me. I said, "I'm coming." I was pulled immediately. What unfolded for me on that retreat that I had no idea was on the cards was that I embraced what was in the shadows. I embraced an experience and thoughts and feelings that I had carried within myself since I was a teen, unacknowledged, sitting there, hiding away, creating resistance, feeding stories of what I can do and what I can't do, and of who I am. And there really was a divine hand that led me to that retreat, because I was held by the most perfect people. I was held by the most perfect people in a really vulnerable state of being that I was in. Really, really vulnerable state of being. I'd not been that vulnerable in a long time. And the freedom that I have experienced as a result of that is beyond. The conversations that I've had around a certain subject matter that I'd never had before have blown my mind. That, I kept on saying, when these conversations would happen, I'd say, it's like as if God has us on puppet strings and says, I'm just going to go and put Giselle over there in Noosa, in the Sunshine Hinterland. She's going to have that experience over there. And then a few weeks later, she's going to come over here and she's going to speak to this person over here. And then, and then that person's going to tell her something that they've never told anybody before. And that's the same subject matter. And wow. Seriously, like, wow. You want the ultimate strategy? You know what? You want to call it God, love, the universe, source, your higher soul, higher spirit. Bloody hell, that is your ultimate strategy. Love is the ultimate strategy. Bloody hell, love is the ultimate strategy. So that's the fourth ingredient to experiencing overflow. The fifth ingredient that I have really joyfully witnessed this year, and these were words that I've never heard or consciously heard, but when I was reflecting on my last year, the words that I received were that grace has been doing the heavy lifting for me. Grace has been doing the heavy lifting for me. I've taken responsibility in all the other pieces that I've just spoken about. Yes, that played my part, totally played my part, 100%. And because I've played my part 100%, I've been balanced, if you like. These are Penny and Jason's words, in fact, or in harmony with both heaven, right? Really being connected to this reality beyond time and space, and really having a relationship with my intuition, and saying yes consistently to my intuition, to where the pull is. And I've also not negated the fact that I'm also a human being in this physical body. And part of the experience of being in this physical body is to have an experience of life. And so I've taken responsibility, and around the pieces that I've been speaking about, I've been doing my part. I've been playing my human role there. And that combination between heaven and earth, like really being the whole of me, both heaven and earth, what that has resulted in is that Grace has been doing the heavy lifting for me. It's been the most remarkable experience. And it's been a statement that I've been saying over and over again. I've really trusted the universal mind. Let's just say that. I've really, really had so much trust in the universal mind. I'm also human, right? And I also have some fragilities. Gosh, they certainly were there in the sunshine hinterland, but they've also been here in my experience of overflow. I said on 2 occasions in the last couple of weeks, oh, I think that's enough now. I think that's enough. And then I've gone and collaborated with my husband. It's like ego to ego collaboration. And he says to me, oh, I think that's enough now. I go, yeah, I think that's enough. It's like, fuck, that's not enough. Like, really, sorry, but I really feel like swearing here. Like, fuck that shit. Like, seriously, fuck that shit. I am an infinite being. I'm an infinite being. That's who I am. And yes, I'm in this human vessel. Absolutely. And so now I'm remembering how to experience sorry, let me say that again. How to experience overflow without experiencing overwhelm. I'm remembering how to experience overflow without experiencing overwhelm. How do I do that? Well, I remember a few things. I remember that what I'm really about is that I'm a demonstration of love that has many, many expressions. Not just one expression, but a demonstration of love that has many, many expressions. I have so many expressions of love in my life, from my work, my family outside of my home here, my mum, my brothers. I have so many groups of friends. I have soccer. We won the grand final. Woo-hoo. You know, I love going out. I love exercising. I have given myself the very abundant membership of being enrolled in 2 different gyms, because there are 2 different things that I love doing there. I have a personal trainer. I'm going to Croatia tomorrow. I'm going to Kenya in November. I love family holidays. We go to Noosa in January. We skied in Falls Creek in July. Life is really, really full. And that is my choice. That's the way I love to do life. I love to experience the many expressions of love in life. No regrets, right? And when I have that human fragility moment of, oh, that's enough now, that's enough, I now remember to check myself. You know, when I had that conversation with myself and my husband, luckily I caught the thought very quickly. I checked myself. It was like, fuck that. That is not true. That is not true. You're an infinite being. Remember, the way you love to live life is you love to live life in its fullness, in the many expressions of love that are here to have. You're an infinite being. That is the truth. And you just need to remember to keep choosing how you love to do life. Keep choosing how you love to do life. Sometimes the rhythm will be really at pace, and sometimes the rhythm will be really slow. What I do know that without giving myself space during the week, on Mondays, every day, just for myself, in the morning from 9 to 11 after the kids have gone, but I don't coach until like 11 o'clock most of the time. When I give myself space, the more overflow actually happens, the more I feel like I have the capacity to hold all of that goodness. So be a demonstration of love, be a demonstration of someone who truly lives from their infinite capacity. If I feel that there's too much, check myself. And this really, really centers me when I remember this. And I'm going to use God here again. You use whatever word you want to use. I totally feel both centered and expanded and infinite and grounded when I remember that God is my chief operating officer, that God is my chief financial officer, and that God is my chief marketing officer. I mean, this podcast has been a demonstration of that for me. When people message me and then I speak to them and they say, I was called to work with you. I was called. I just knew I had to work with you. Again, I never created the podcast for that reason. I am so grateful. So God is my COO, God is my CFO, and God is my CMO. In that, I feel expansive, infinite, and grounded. And the more space I give to myself, the more there is overflow. Isn't it interesting, that one? Because most people would think that to experience overflow, you have to do more, you have to stress, you have to hustle, you have to compromise everything else and put everything else aside. No, absolutely not. The more space you give to yourself, the more present you are. The more present you are, the more connected you are. The more connected you are, the more connected you are in all of life. And the more connected you are in all of life, the more you walk life in intuition. And when you walk life in intuition and follow the intuitive pull consistently, overflow is the only consequence that can happen. If you want to exercise this muscle, want to learn to use these muscles, these internal muscles, and you feel called to either work with me or come to Kenya, please follow that pull and email me or send me a message. Email details are in the show notes. I'll be taking my microphone away with me because I know that there's going to be so much juiciness happening when I'm over there that I want to capture in the moment. So I am very much looking forward to that and sharing the love from Switzerland to start with, Croatia next, the UK to see my brother's family, and back to Switzerland. And then I'll be back home in Sydney in the beginning of October. Sending you all lots and lots and lots of love. Ciao, ciao. If you enjoyed this episode or previous episodes, I would so appreciate you sharing the love and letting your family, friends, and colleagues know about this podcast, because the only way that it's going to get out there is if we use word of mouth, the good old word of mouth. So I have my hands in appreciation for you, for those who have already been sharing the love, and should this part of the podcast inspire you to share amongst your network, I really appreciate you. Also, I've been saying that I am also returning to my first love, which is writing. So if you would like to receive me in your inbox every week, there is a link in the show notes where you'll be able to subscribe, and I look forward to writing to you. Have an incredible